Hey, it's been a while. I'm back. I just have one quick thing to say about the people watching this. Holy shit. 100%? Oh, also like 98% of you aren't subscribed, so there's that. Anyway, back to the video. Have you been dying a lot?
Shotgun, what?
Getting frustrated at the awful menus and complicated mechanics? Hunt Showdown, like most other Extraction Royale games, is pretty complicated, and that's why I'm here to help you start off on a strong foot. Alright, so you want your games to look like this. How do you get there? Aside from simply putting in the time, it's important to keep a cool head. That doesn't just mean not getting angry, but also not being afraid either. Easier said than done. But seriously, work on it and try to see yourself as the apex predator of the server. Not an unkillable god, but someone who can outthink and outplay your opponents. Playing scared is a one-way street to getting your ass slapped down the piss slide. Naturally, this is all made harder if you're like me and mostly play solo against duos or trios. Someone please play with me. And I certainly have shit-ass games where I get absolutely railed, but most of this game is about having a monk mental. One exercise for improving the fastest and getting rid of fear is buying a free hunter and going into a game with the intent of getting them killed through being overly aggressive. You've got to learn your limits somehow, and I often find these games to be surprisingly successful. So why am I talking about this before I mention mechanics or how the game works? I think that more than anything else, games should be fun, and the best way to enjoy a game is to have a healthy mindset. Anyway, with that said, here's how the game actually works. So when you first open the game, you see this god-awful mess of a menu, but here's what to pay attention to. This is the lobby, obviously, where you start a game and invite other players. This contract thing is useless, and has been that way since beta. Ignore it. Quests and quest lines are here. During an event, there will be quest line objectives to complete. Completing daily challenges rewards you with items and currency, but don't worry about it too much starting out unless you think it's fun. These next categories are the different game modes. Sole Survivor is a single-player battle royale mode where items randomly spawn around the map and you can bring nothing in. If you win, you can add your character and anything they found during the match to your roster for normal games. This is a great way to warm up and get some free items if you don't have anyone to play with. Trials takes you to a compound in a particular map and offers you, well, trials to complete. There are 3 levels of difficulty, each one rewarding a star, which contributes to unlocking skins and rewarding items. This can also basically be ignored unless you're bored and looking to play alone without the pressure of other hunters. The tutorial is probably the first thing you'll do in Hunt. Make sure to complete all the tutorials because they reward blood bonds, which is the premium currency. Finally, the shooting range is exactly what it sounds like. For the most part, the progress tab can be completely ignored unless you're wondering when you unlock certain guns. Playing the game grants XP based on your performance, which levels up your bloodline. At each level of the bloodline, you'll unlock something new or get money or something like that. When you reach the max rank, you can prestige, which is not worth it. I repeat, do not prestige in this game. Next you have the challenges, which you can see in-game by pressing tab. Once per day you can reshuffle one if you don't like it. Try to reshuffle the more expensive ones. The rewards for the Trials game mode is hidden here for some dumbass reason. The roster tab is where you'll be spending most of your time. This is where you customize a character. On the left you can see how many hunters you have recruited at the time. Notice their level. As you play with a hunter, you gain levels, which can be used to buy traits, which make your hunter more powerful. You can see them on the bottom. Once your hunter reaches a certain level, you can retire them for XP or money or something, but I never really do this. You would only want to do it once they're at least level 50 for the biggest bonus. Here I'm collecting them for an achievement. If you get 5 level 50 hunters at the same time, you get a rare achievement. To the right, you can have 2 weapons at a time, taking up no more than 4 weapon slots. A full-size weapon like a rifle is large and usually takes up 3 slots, while pistols are small and take up 1 slot. You can dual wield pistols, which then become a medium and take up 2 slots. If you have the quartermaster trait, you can have 5 slots worth of weapons rather than 4. For example, you could have a large rifle and a medium shotgun. Here you can sort by weapon size. In Hunt Showdown, nearly all the weapons can kill in one shot to the head, but vary in range and penetration. Don't worry too much about weapons for now and just focus on trying out different things. You can test them out in the practice range. When it comes to tools, you'll almost always want a melee weapon and a first aid kit. The other 2 slots are free for whatever you want. Just avoid the headlamp and spyglass. In the consumables tab, you'll usually want a health shot and some sort of explosive. Health shots are faster than bandages unless you have the doctor trait. If you find a loadout you really enjoy, you can add it here, get the loadout equipped, and then press save. In the future, you can purchase and equip everything all at once. The equipment tab allows you to see everything that you have access to. Switch between weapons, tools, and consumables. Just click on a slot in that row. Items that have this symbol were acquired from a free hunter and cannot be sold for any money. You can switch between skins using this little thing here. Next is the upgrades tab, but it should be called traits because that's what they are. Anyway, some of the best ones for any build are Ghoul, Vulture, sometimes Bullet Grubber, although it's become less useful. I'll explain more about that later. Conduit, Levering, if you have one of the Winfield variants. Necromancer, if you're playing with another person. Serpent for funsies. Greyhound is one of the first traits I always build. Physician for faster bandaging. Quartermaster for getting that 5th weapon slot. Pitcher if you like throwing shit. And finally Doctor. Honestly, the respec tab is completely useless. Just ignore it. The recruits tab is where you recruit new hunters. As a new player, the free hunters are going to be your go-to. Recruit one whenever possible, as it's the best deal for saving money and learning the weapons. Don't forget to equip a knife and a first aid kit. If you win a match of solo survivors, it'll show up for recruitment here rather than being immediately recruited. Here's the legendary hunters. When recruited, they come equipped with 3 random traits. The store page is where they want you to spend money or buy skins, so yeah, you can ignore it. The arsenal is where you see all your unlocked weapons. One useful tip for these menus is you can type in the name of a trait to see what weapons work with it. You can also click 3D view to hear the weapons in-game at different ranges, so you know what they sound like. Finally, the library, which should not be ignored. Killing certain numbers of monsters unlocks new entries, which can be claimed for blood bonds. It's a solid way for getting some money at the start since you'll claim them fast. The first thing you'll want to make sure you have on is the hunter control scheme. This allows for more control over your movement and a wider general FOV. It may be tempting to use the gunslinger because it's more familiar to most people playing hunt, but trust me on this one, it is way better to use hunter. You gotta just get used to it. Make sure to set the FOV to 110 for more peripheral vision. Hunt also uses 1 key for sprinting and aiming down sights. I have this bound to shift. HUD, audio, graphics are up to you, but I recommend turning off motion blur and depth of field. Again though, it's up to you whether you want to play this game to be good or just to have fun, so experiment but don't feel too much pressure other than using hunter. Hunt Showdown, unlike other similar games, does not have a zone that creeps in on the players. Instead, the time constraint comes from extracting with a bounty. Once all of the bounty has left the map, the remaining players will have 5 minutes to extract empty-handed, or their hunter will be lost. Opening the map shows compounds. Each one has a clue, which when collected grays out part of the map as areas where the boss cannot be located. This deactivates the clues in that area for you. Something to note is the map is grayed out the same for each player when they collect a clue. On the map, you can also see supply cards, which are areas with guaranteed resources and special traits during events. Collecting the 3rd and final clue reveals the boss compound if you've not already found it. Entering the compound deactivates all clues for that boss on the map, so if you have the choice to collect another clue, always do that before entering the compound for more XP. Up to 2 bosses may spawn per map, and you can tell which one is in each area by matching the Roman numerals. When fighting the boss, many new players make the mistake of using their guns. You should avoid this when possible and instead opt for using one of the melee weapons scattered around the facility. For fighting the butcher, an axe works the best. For the spider, a sledgehammer. For the assassin, use lanterns and any melee weapon you can find. Scrapbeak's compound, however, will not spawn any items, so you have to use either your knife, guns, or explosives to take it down. As you damage it, it'll drop items which help you kill it faster and more quietly. These items will burn if you catch Scrapbeak on fire, so try to avoid this unless you're pressed for time. When dealt a certain amount of damage, each boss will enter a frenzy. The butcher and Scrapbeak will simply run at you swinging their melee weapons. When they do this, just step out of the compound and wait for them to calm down. Scrapbeak shakes a bunch and drops items, while the butcher will make a pig noise and, I don't know, lift his arms up or something. That's their cue that they're about to go into a frenzy. The spider will run away and jump on you, while the assassin splits into multiple clones which explode on contact, dealing very little damage but obscuring your vision with icky bugs. While fighting the boss, you should periodically use Dark Sense and look at the boss icon. If it's blinking red, that means there are enemies nearby and you should either finish the boss off quickly or do something clever. Once the boss is dead, you can banish it, but before you do this, make sure to check one more time that no one's in the area. Once the banishing is started, you can no longer check. Banishing takes 200 seconds or 2 seconds per tick. Once it's fully banished, take the bounty. This provides you 5 seconds of shitty wall hacks, which is tied to your Dark Sense. Usually I use 1 second once the banishing is done just to see if anyone's around. You can either engage them with your advantages or just try to run. Other hunters can see you on the map by a lightning bolt or by using Dark Sense. At this point, it would be good to mention that Hunt recently added its first roaming boss that isn't tied to a compound. Rotjaw is a crocodile that has a chance of spawning when it's the only other boss on the map, and it's either rainy, foggy, dark, or sometimes dawn, I think. Not totally sure. At this point, most people have forgotten that it's even in the game since it spawns so rarely, and it doesn't have a boss icon in the top left until you find the first clue along the river. Also, you get less for banishing it than a typical boss, so honestly, don't worry about it unless you want to and think it's fun. After you kill, banish, and pick up the bounty, your main goal is to extract. You can find extraction points located around the outside of the map. They look like this. Once you extract, you'll get money and level your hunter. Buy them some good trades, consumables, maybe some better weapons. And remember, don't be afraid. Do calculated limit tests, because the only way you're going to get better at something is by actually doing it and not being afraid to mess up. When you make a mistake, congratulate yourself because you learned something new.